She stopped waiting, not because she gave up, because she learned something no child should ever learn. She learned that waiting was just another way of getting hurt. You know exactly what I mean. There was a version of you, younger, softer, who used to run to the door when she heard footsteps, who used to look at the clock and think, "This time they'll come," who used to sit by the window long after everyone else had moved on. That girl waited, and nobody came. This video is about what happened to her after that. You don't remember the exact moment it happened. That's the thing about the wounds that change everything. They don't announce themselves. They don't come with a single night, a single fight, a single door slamming shut. They come slowly. One unanswered call. One room you walked into crying and left still crying. One dinner table where you said something and nobody looked up. You were small. You didn't have words for it yet, but your body understood. You reached out, and nothing reached back. You said, "I need you," and the silence answered instead. At first, you thought you were doing it wrong. Maybe you were too loud, too much, too needy. So you tried softer, quieter. You carefully chose the right moment, the right words, the right tone. You made yourself easier to love, but easier didn't fix anything. The silence was still there. And then, one day, you stopped reaching. Not in anger, not in a dramatic moment. You just stopped. The way you stop checking a mailbox when you already know it's empty. Something in you understood that this was how things were, that you were going to have to handle things yourself. And here's what nobody talks about. That moment didn't feel like loss. It felt like survival. So you adapted. That's what you do when you're young and you have no other choice. You built something around the empty space where support was supposed to be. You became capable. You became the one who figures things out. You became the girl who doesn't make problems. She solves them, quietly, without asking anyone. At school, you didn't raise your hand when you didn't understand something. You stayed after class. You figured it out yourself. You made sure nobody saw you struggle. At home, when something broke, literally or emotionally, you found a way to hold it together. Not because you were strong, because you had learned that asking for help didn't actually help. And so you stopped asking. But here's what that looked like from the outside. People saw a girl who had it together. They saw someone responsible, calm, self-sufficient. They saw someone who didn't need much. And they were relieved, because you being okay meant they didn't have to do anything. You made it very easy for people to not show up for you. Not because you wanted to, but because you had learned, without anyone telling you, that needing people was a risk you couldn't afford. Think about that for a second. You were a child, and you had already decided that needing someone was dangerous. That asking out loud was worse than carrying it alone. That silence protected you in a way that words never did. So, you got quiet, not the peaceful kind of quiet. The kind of quiet that comes after you've screamed inside enough times that you stop bothering. You were somewhere around 9, 10, 11 years old, and you were already managing yourself the way adults manage themselves after a lifetime of disappointment. You were doing something remarkable, and it cost you something you don't fully understand yet. Here's what nobody saw. Here's what was happening underneath all that capability. You didn't stop needing support. You stopped expecting it. Those are not the same thing. You still needed someone to sit with you when things got hard. You still needed someone to say, "I see you. I'm here. You don't have to carry this alone." You needed that, but you had trained yourself with precision, with repetition, with years of evidence, to never let that need reach the surface. So it went somewhere else. It showed up as exhaustion nobody understood, as the kind of tired that sleep doesn't fix, as lying in bed at night with a weight on your chest and no name for what's pressing on it. Not the loud kind, the quiet kind that builds in the back of your throat when someone asks you for help and you say yes. Again, because you would never let someone else feel what you felt. It showed up as control. Because when you can't control whether people show up for you, you control everything else. Your schedule, your environment, your reactions, the face you show the world. Control became the one thing that made you feel safe. And then there's this. Every time something went wrong, and something always goes wrong, you handled it. Completely, alone, without telling anyone. Not because you wanted to, because the thought of saying, "I can't handle this," felt like falling off a cliff. Because the thought of asking for help and getting silence, again, was worse than the problem itself. So you became someone who doesn't break down in front of people. You became someone who waits until she gets home, closes the door, and then, maybe, lets herself feel it, alone. And the terrifying part, that started to feel normal. You stopped noticing that you were carrying everything by yourself. You just thought that's how adults live. You thought everyone felt this weight. You thought the loneliness was just part of being a person, but it isn't. And here's what nobody sees. The moments when you come closest to asking, you talk yourself out of it before the words form. You run a calculation. Is this worth asking? Will I have to manage their reaction on top of my own pain? And almost every time, the answer is, handle it yourself. Now here's the part that hurts more. Stay with me. Because this isn't about your childhood anymore. This is about who you are right now. There are people in your life who would help you if you asked. There are people who would sit with you, who would listen, who would show up, but you don't ask. And when they offer, you say you're fine. You say it's nothing. You say you've got it. And they believe you because you say it so convincingly, because you've had years of practice. But underneath that, you're waiting for them to notice without being told, for them to push past the "I'm fine" and see what's actually there, for someone to finally see through the version of you that handles everything and find the girl underneath who is exhausted. And when they don't, when they take the "I'm fine" at face value and move on, something in you confirms the old belief. Nobody comes unless you fall apart completely, so you hold yourself together even harder. Because falling apart feels like the only way to get what you actually need. And you will not do that. You will not be that. So you keep carrying it, and the weight grows, and you tell yourself this is just who you are. Strong, independent, capable. But it isn't who you are. It's who you had to become. There is a difference, and that difference matters more than you've allowed yourself to admit. Because the version of you that stopped waiting, she made a decision. Not a conscious one, not a choice, a conclusion. She concluded that needing people leads to pain, and she built her entire life around not needing them. And the cruelest part of all of this, she was right. Every time you've let your guard down, every time you got close enough to need someone, eventually, there was a moment they weren't there, and that old wound opened again, and the wall goes up higher, and now you're living in the house that little girl built, and some part of you still lives inside it, sitting by the window, still waiting, still hoping that this time, someone will come. You function. Nobody questions that. You get things done. You meet your deadlines. You support the people around you. From the outside, you look like someone who has her life together. But there's a cost to this that never shows up in the parts of your life people can see. It shows up in the small moments. When someone asks, "How are you really doing?" and you feel a sudden flash of something you can't name, and then the automatic answer comes out before you can stop it. "I'm good, just tired." When you notice yourself doing something kind for someone, again, and wondering, quietly, if anyone would do the same for you. When you're in the middle of something genuinely difficult and you catch yourself thinking, "I just need to get through this," as if getting through it alone is the only option that exists. When someone actually tries to help you and something in your body resists it, not because you don't want it, because receiving it feels wrong, because being taken care of is so unfamiliar that it makes you uncomfortable, because if you let someone in, really in, and then they leave, you don't know if there's anything left of you on the other side of that. So you stay self-contained. You stay manageable. You make sure you never need more than people are willing to give. And you call it independence. And some of it is. You are genuinely capable. But under the capability, there's a girl who learned that the safest way to live was to need no one. And she's still running the calculations, still deciding every day that the answer is, handle it yourself. She doesn't know another way yet. And so you move through your days carrying things that were never meant to be carried alone. A decision eating you alive, and you haven't told anyone. Something you wish someone would just notice. And you've made sure nobody can. She stopped waiting. That's what this video is called. But here's what's true. She just stopped showing it. And somewhere in you, right now, tonight, after this, there is still a version of you sitting by that window, still listening for footsteps, still wondering if this time will be different. She didn't disappear. She just learned to be very, very quiet, and you've been so good at not hearing her. So good that sometimes you forget she's there. But she's there, and she's still waiting.